investigators still have no answers about why Las Vegas shooter Stephen Paddock did what he did.
What we continue to investigate is whether anybody else may have known about this incident before he carried it out.
Nate strengthening as it threatens to slam into New Orleans this weekend. The storm has already killed more than 20 people in Central America.
3 people have been arrested and charged in connection to an ISIS-inspired terror plot that prosecutors say targeted New York City concerts, subways, and landmarks.
ISIS is making a concerted and constant effort to establish both a network as well as folks who will be able to execute attacks here.
With dozens of senior military officials flanking him, President Trump says this is the calm before the storm.
Reporters tried to get clarification from him, but to no avail.
What did you mean by calm before the storm?
You'll find out.
Joining Representative Scalise to catch his pitch is Special Agent David Bailey.
We're never prepared for it.
Come on in.
Come on into our living room. And guess who's with us this morning?
In your living room.
That's right. Look at the man himself, Dean Cain.
Hey!
Welcome.
He flew in.
I did. I love the curvy couch. I love the new studio, too. I've been here a couple times.
Yeah.
First time hosting, though.
First time hosting, but you guys, all the pressure's on you. I can't do anything to mess this up.
But I know you've never been in front of cameras before, and I know you're really, really nervous.
Extremely nervous. I hope it goes well.
You're going to be great. We're thrilled to have you here.
I am honored to be here. This is great.
It's going to be a lot of fun, for sure. 4 hours. You ready, 4 hours?
I asked him if he's ever done a 4-hour show. He said, no.
We'll
see how it goes.
And watch and go, how do these guys do it for 4 hours? So now we'll have the answer.
You're about to
We've already had a little coffee.
Coffee is
so that's a good start.
But you can't drink much coffee, right?
Oh, I still have a little bit.
A little bit.
You got to. You got to survive.
Right.
Break a few rules.
Yeah.
All right, well, moving on now to a hard turn. New dramatic video showing those chilling moments, as shots rang out during the Las Vegas massacre that killed 58 innocent people.
This coming hours after investigators announced they've hit a dead end in the hunt for the murder's motive and need the public's help.
Will Carr is live in Las Vegas with the latest. Will?
Good morning, guys. The windows on the 32nd floor of Mandalay Bay have finally been boarded up, but there's still a lot of evidence as to what happened out here. You can see the police tape and a fence that was pushed in as so many people were running for their lives.
Those are shots! Run! Those are shots! Run! Don't look!
Run! Go! Run. Go! Go! Everybody go!
That video showing the chaotic moments playing out while this attack was occurring, and you can understand why there are still 26 people in critical condition, almost 60 still in hospitals, as the FBI continues to try to figure out what was the motive behind this attack. We know that they're continuing to talk to Stephen Paddock's girlfriend, Mary Lou Danley. They're trying to talk to her about getting insight into his mental state as well as his financial status. He had $5 million in earnings from gambling back in 2015. We also know that he paid for at least one house and a car very recently in cash. And to remember the victims this week, a memorial's been set up in front of the iconic Las Vegas sign, 58 wooden crosses, one for each victim. And when you walk through it, it is quite emotional.
It's humbling and heartbreaking. It's so beautiful, but so devastating. It's every emotion at once. The kindness of this community is just amazing.
And later this morning, there is a unity prayer walk that is set, and Vice President Mike Pence is coming into town for that as he plans to pay his respects to the 58 victims. Guys, back to you.
All right, Will Carr, thank you.
I mean, the hard part about it is it doesn't make a difference either way, but you just want to know why. And when you can't even find a scrap of that evidence right now, it's puzzling.
Well, that's odd in itself, that you can't find anything. I mean, the guy went so far to cover his tracks. But it's a complete enigma. I mean, nobody has a clue, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
And investigators are saying they may never know. We may never figure out ultimately what that motive is. It seems like now, I was listening to Dan Bongino last night. He said the only lead that they may have is this girlfriend. the one that has been with him for all this time. I mean, if anyone's going to know anything, it's the person that lived with him.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to, I mean, they've already questioned her for 6 to 8 hours, but the fact that we're basically a week out of this thing and nothing.
Yeah, that's right.
Hopefully
really
they know more,
shocking.
and they just haven't shared it yet.
Yeah,
I hope they've
Yeah.
figured something out.
Could be the case.
Then you used the word enigma. Another enigma is what the president meant when he said calm before the storm. And you'll find out. If you remember, on Thursday, the president held an event right there with military members in the Oval, in the White House. And he said at that event, he said, look at this group here. What a great group. This may be the calm before the storm. Well, everyone wants to know what's the calm before the storm. So then yesterday in the Oval Office, he was asked again by reporters. Take a listen to what the president said Thursday and Friday.
You guys know what this represents? Well, maybe it's the calm before the storm.
What's the storm?
Could be the calm before the storm.
What storm, Mr.
We have the
President?
world's great military people in this room. I will tell you that. And we'll have a great evening. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
What storm, Mr. President?
What did you mean by calm before the storm yesterday? What did you mean by that?
Thank you very much.
Thanks. You'll find out.
Oh, he knows exactly what he's doing. It's like you leave a few little breadcrumbs in the middle of like 100 pigeons, and you know they're just going to swarm right to that center. I mean, so that night, Thursday night, the media was in their media room, and they were thinking this was just going to be a regular night where we're doing our work. And all of a sudden he said, you know what? No. I want them to come to this dinner where I'm with the generals. And that's when he was taking the photo and said, this is calm before the storm. So he thought about this before and knew what he was doing. I think presidents in the past have done this as well. They know how to play the media.
But has anyone ever done it quite like him? I mean, I feel like he's trolling the media.
He is. I think he's totally trolling the media there. You do something like that, even the smile and the wink.
The wink.
I mean, he was like, you
know who else he might be winking at? Maybe, I don't know, winking at Pyongyang, maybe winking at Tehran. People are speculating, but the media breathlessly freaking out. Take a listen.
Why did he say that? It comes as officials tell CNN President Trump is prepared to decertify the Iran nuclear deal.
It's incredibly reckless. And I know we discount. I know the bar is so low, it's buried way underground. But it's incredibly reckless rhetoric to talk about the calm before the storm and to be laughing and joshing.
You could see when he said it, 3 seconds afterwards, he literally had a smile. Now, if you're talking about a storm of raining, fire and brimstone, you're not smiling. He literally winked. We have to stop trying to analyze what he says, and it's just Tourette's of silliness.
When they sort of catch their breath in this town, when they sort of hold their breath in this town, when he says something like that, you have a smile on your face. I mean, is that somewhat satisfying?
No, I just picture people in this town actually holding their breath. That might be a welcome surprise for most of America.
That's very
so real and raw.
Speaking of that town, the Washington Post, the paper, so-called paper of record from Washington, D.C., had this headline as well. What storm, Mr. President? Trump puts world on edge with cryptic cliffhanger. Do you really think the world is on edge? Do you think the world's going, oh man, this guy's going to do something horrible and horrific?
I have never seen media react this way over, a president or anything that was said before. So it's a big game, I think, in some ways to him, and he plays it well.
Yeah,
he's been headlines just for that comment. It's been headlines for days now.
And I think the unpredictability of the president, whether it's related to the media or, as you said, to the world. I mean, we don't know who he's talking about. We don't know if he's referring to ISIS, to North Korea, to Iran. It could be any of them. It could be all of them.
And they don't know either.
And they don't know. And that is what I heard yesterday from both Republicans and Democrats, that could actually be a really smart strategy, because when you're dealing with people like Kim Jong-un, you're dealing with leaders in Iran. I mean, you want them on their toes. You want them to be nervous about what that next move might be, and you want them to take the president seriously. You want them to know that there is someone new in town.
Absolutely. And the media still hasn't figured out, when they're supposed to take him literally, they take him figuratively. And when they're supposed to take him figuratively, they hold him literally to it. They just can't figure out. And why did they look at the predictable statements of previous presidents that have allowed North Korea to get nuclear weapons, that have allowed the Iran deal to continue? Those of us that are sick of the status quo, the forgotten men and women who voted for President Trump, want that town to freak out. I want those reporters going, what do you mean? What do you mean? It's beautiful to watch, because the adults are in the White House. He's got great advisors. He's doing serious things. And he's just, like you said, breadcrumbs. They don't know what to do with it.
He's having a little fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, Bo Bergdahl, I know you've got some thoughts on this one, Pete. So he is back in the news again. He is expected to plead guilty to deserting his post. And just a reminder, just if we can play this flashback, this is back from June 1st, 2014, an interview that Susan Rice had with ABC's This Week. Let's play that.
There are a lot of questions about how he originally was captured and whether or not he had deserted, had left his post. Will he be disciplined, or has already paid the price?
Certainly, anybody who's been held in those conditions in captivity for 5 years has paid an extraordinary price. But that is really not the point. The point is that he's back. He's going to be safely reunited with his family. He served the United States with honor and distinction.
Honor and distinction. Of course, one of the many Sunday morning times when Susan Rice took to TV, like Benghazi, and explained away the unexplainable. You also remember the Rose Garden ceremony that the president held for the parent when Bo Bergdahl was released. The sheer lack of awareness about what they had actually done, what this guy had actually done. He walked off his post. But he deserted his guys, and now he's pled guilty.
Didn't they know? I mean, they know this sort of stuff. I mean, I think the White House was aware of what was going on. They had to have known what happened. They talked to the other members of his platoon and things like that. They weren't saying he was, serving with honor and distinction. They said something completely different.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were willing to trade 5 of the worst terrorists in the world for this guy. And now he pleads guilty of deserting. Many would say treason. What they got him on was desertion. And we'll see what kind of time he gets, because it's likely a plea deal.
Yeah.
So that remains to be seen.
Yeah, we'll follow that one closely. Yeah. We got some other headlines, though, I want to bring you, starting with some extreme weather. Yes, again, the Gulf Coast is now bracing for impact as Tropical Storm Nate turns into a hurricane overnight. The Category 1 storm already deadly, killing at least 24 people now across Central America. Right now, Louisiana and Florida issuing mandatory evacuations as the storm brings winds of up to 80 miles per hour. Hurricane Nate could make landfall here in the United States as early as tonight. And the Trump administration already facing legal backlash for rolling back Obamacare's birth control mandate. The ACLU and Massachusetts Attorney General each filing suits claiming discrimination against women's reproductive rights. The move by the White House allows employers to deny birth control coverage to employees on religious or moral grounds. Also this, an emotional moment for House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, who fired up the crowd by throwing the ceremonial first pitch at the Washington Nationals playoff game against the Chicago Cubs. Watch this.
Ladies and gentlemen, Special Agent David Bailey of the U.S. Capitol Police and U.S. Representative Steve Scalise.
Oh, that is a great shot right there. Scalise driving a strike right to Capitol Police Officer David Bailey, who was part of Scalise's security detail when he was shot at a congressional baseball practice back in June. 2 other victims of the shooting later joining Scalise near that mound. It all comes full circle when you think about where he was when the shooting happened, on the baseball field. And here he is.
Really cool.
Back in action with a big smile on his face.
Throws it right down the middle. Just like President Bush after 9/11, remember that? Just a perfect.
He was a little closer, but he had a walker still, so he has every reason to be able to be closer.
That's true. Good stuff. Well, now we're moving on to a Fox News alert. Las Vegas was not the only target. Chicago also on the gunman's list. The Windy City hosting a big marathon this weekend. The city's former chief of police says America needs to be on alert, and he's next.
Plus, after the massacre in Las Vegas and the heroic actions by law enforcement as shots rang, will football players stand and be united for our country? We're going to discuss that later in the show.
Welcome back into a Fox News alert. New details developing on the Las Vegas shooter. Investigators revealing now that the gunman purchased tracer ammunition just weeks before the attack from a man in Arizona. Here to react is former Chicago Police Superintendent Gary McCarthy. Gary, good morning. Thank you. So the use of tracer rounds, they help you identify where you're shooting at night, but they can also give away your position. So we know that he bought them. Did he use them, and why would he have bought them?
I don't think he used them because they were having a lot of trouble figuring out where he was firing from. But the biggest issue to me is those are military-grade weapons that really shouldn't exist in a civilized society. The gun debate has to come center. It can't be everybody gets more guns or nobody has any guns. Why aren't we selling? If the Second Amendment gives us a right to bear arms, why aren't we selling hand grenades at Walmart? Because those are arms or rocket launchers, and we've got to draw the line somewhere. We've gone way too far.
But to be clear, a tracer round as munition, it doesn't have any sort of different impact. It just you can see it when you fire it.
Exactly right. It tells you which way you're shooting.
Yeah.
It's like you put one every 5 rounds or something like that.
Absolutely. You're from Chicago. You've got a big marathon coming up there, and Chicago happened to be on the list of major U.S. cities scouted by the gunman. And with the marathon happening this weekend, what more is being done at events like this, soft target events, to protect them?
So after the Boston bombing, when I was still a superintendent, we really ramped up what we were doing as far as coverage for the marathon. Unfortunately, the freedoms that make this country great also make us vulnerable. And it's literally impossible to cover every single building in downtown Chicago or over a 26-mile route. There will be helicopters up, and I'm sure that there's extra precautions that have been taken. But we ramped up the number of bomb-sniffing dogs. We put a lot more police into the crowd, both undercover and uniform officers. But again, you can't cover everything. If you're in an arena or a stadium, it's a lot easier to cover a target that's not moving, that's not spread out like that.
Sure.
But there will be significant presence by the Chicago Police Department. But the greatest protection we have, unfortunately, didn't work in Las Vegas, which is our intelligence that we share with our partners like the FBI, working on terrorism and trying to prevent these things from happening. Yeah. And by the way, I'm not ready to dismiss terrorism in Las Vegas. This guy doesn't fit the profile of what would normally have been somebody who became radicalized. But by the same token, he obviously carried out a well-planned, well-executed, technical attack. The cameras, the bombs, the bump stocks, all of those things take some expertise, and it's difficult for me to believe that he acted by himself.
So you wouldn't rule out terrorism? You think that's been written off a little bit too quickly in what happened in Las Vegas?
I don't think it's been written off. And again, you guys just mentioned the fact that we're probably not hearing everything out of Joe Lombardo or the FBI as far as what they know. But the fact is, that's still got to be in play. Look, being radicalized, disenfranchised younger individuals, absolutely. Yeah. But obviously, this guy had some problems, and he became vulnerable as a result. Don't write off the Philippines. There's a very big terrorism component in the Philippines, right? and who knows what the relationship was.
Gary McCarthy, thank you very much, and good luck with the marathon this weekend. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up, it's one of the president's signature campaign promises.
We will build a great wall along the southern border.
Build that wall. Build that wall.
My favorite is the wall just got 10 feet higher. Well, this morning, we're getting our first look at what his big, beautiful wall could look like. And after the massacre in Las Vegas and the heroic actions by law enforcement as shots rang out, will NFL football players stand up and be united for our country this weekend? We're going to discuss that next.
25 minutes now after the hour, we are back with some quick headlines. President Trump signs a proclamation declaring Monday as Columbus Day. Our commander-in-chief encouraging all Americans to celebrate the permanent arrival of Europeans to the Americas. But not everyone is excited about it. Antifa group announcing a nationwide campaign appearing to call on activists to destroy monuments to Christopher Columbus. This after several Columbus statues around the country have already been vandalized with racially charged graffiti. That is unfortunate. Dean, take it away.
All right, well, nearly 30% of all NFL fans are turning off the games. 30%, most of them due to the players protesting the national anthem. Now, just days after tragedy struck America with the massacre in Vegas, will players put aside their resistance to come together and honor the country? Here to discuss our Super Bowl champion and author Burgess Owens and president and CEO of Blueprint Strategy, Antoine Seawright. All right, so Burgess, what is your take on this? Is this are people going to come together now at this point in time, or are they going to still take some knees?
Well, I think what we have to look at, this is one thing we've always done as Americans. Whenever we've been attacked, we've come together. What we're seeing really is the underbelly, the dark underbelly of the Marxists within the black community that's really taken away the pride of young black Americans for our country. So we understand that's where our problem is. It's something that's been going on for a long, long time. So we're seeing the end result of that on the sidelines now with guys who become very wealthy, but still cannot leave behind what they've been actually brainwashing of the left for them for quite a while. So we have a battle to do, but it's going to be there. And I think we're going to start to see guys finally standing up and understanding that the crowd and the fans are really just don't want this anymore.
And Antoine, I imagine you're not going to agree with that.
I fundamentally disagree. To think that the NFL is in trouble because a small percentage of the American people have a problem with the way they peaceful protest. It's just a simple misinterpretation of the fact. I'm in the political business. We can make polls say anything. Polls are a snapshot of the moment. They are a result of someone's feeling. And truthfully, they are an interpretation of how results are tallied. Here's what I do believe. I believe that the NFL players who may take a knee before the anthem or during the anthem are not numb to what's going on in this country. I believe the issue and the reason they took a knee was the fact that black and brown people have been proportionally mistreated in this country. And I believe some will take a knee and some will take two knees in prayer for those who have been impacted by Vegas, but also they will unite, as they've done every year since I've been watching football. Right, they will unite around causes such as breast cancer and such as domestic violence.
Can I say one thing here, please?
Sure, yeah, Burgess, please go ahead.
Yes, the biggest poll you're going to find is that one of the free market. And the poll that we're seeing now, the American people don't want to hear how bad their country is. We have a country that's giving every American, black and white, the greatest opportunities in the history of mankind, including the millionaires that's staying on the sideline today. So understand that we're at a fight. We're having a fight, but it's a fight within the black community against Marxism and socialism. That's our fight. You have young men who have not understood the gratitude that they should have been taught. So we need to get back in there and start teaching.
And I think that's very disrespectful to those young men who have worked hard to get where they are, and perhaps they're just like me and you. They have feelings about this country, and they're no different.
Well, the feelings they have, unfortunately, the feelings they have is not what most Americans have. The Americans that stand up and
one thing here, gentlemen, one thing here is there were a number of people who were taking a knee, and then the president made some comments, and suddenly there were 10 times the number of players taking a knee. Were they doing it to protest the situation, or were they protesting the president himself?
I think the good thing about the president did, very simply, is, one second, I think what the president did, first of all, is brought us to a point where we have this conversation. This has been something that's going on for decades in our community. The hopelessness, the beliefs that this country is not for them has been happening for a long, long time. And thank goodness we have this conversation so that in this off season, they can put the money where the mouth is, let's get in our community and start working with these kids to give them hope. And there's a lot of ways we can do it. The last thing we do is not to stand for a flag that gives us the opportunity to become the greatest that we can ever become. And no other country has done it like our country has done it here.
Well, here's what I believe.
You get the last word. Go ahead.
They can take a knee and take a stand. And the ones I know, the 18 I've been blessed to work with, they donate money to their communities. They volunteer, they give time. They do everything they can to make sure that the children in this country have a better quality of life than they had growing up.
All right, well, here we are, guys. Thank you, Burgess Owens and Antoine Seawright. Appreciate your opinions. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. And America does come together in times of crisis, so it'll be interesting to see what happens. Coming up, brand new details on an ISIS-inspired terror plot to attack landmarks here in New York City. And in the wake of the Las Vegas massacre, SWAT teams across the country are going through intense training, learning to take down terrorists in their tracks.
If you're the first person on the scene, you have to make that personal choice to make entry into that structure and try to seek out where the shooting's coming from. We cannot wait anymore.
Pete witnessed the intense training firsthand and takes us behind the scenes next.
We are back with the Fox News alert. 3 men, including an American, now charged with plotting terrorist attacks right here in New York City.
The targets they were plotting against: Times Square and this city's subway system.
Fox News' Kristen Fisher live in D.C. with the latest on the 9/11 inspired plan.
Hey, Kristen.
Hey, good morning, Abby, Pete, and Dean. You know, thankfully, federal authorities were able to stop this ISIS-inspired attack before it ever happened. But these terrorists were going after some of the city's most iconic landmarks, concert venues, and public transportation. One target, Times Square. According to investigators, one of the plotters had actually emailed an undercover FBI agent posing as an ISIS sympathizer and told him that, quote, "We seriously need a car bomb at Times Square. Look at these crowds of people." He also said that he wanted to create the next 9/11. Another target, the New York City subway system, and they apparently had obtained maps of the system to help them plan their attack. 3 men have now been arrested and charged. One is a U.S. citizen based in Pakistan, another's from the Philippines, and the third is a Canadian citizen. Now, he's the one who authorities say actually purchased all of these bomb-making materials. And at one point, he also outlined a plan to target music festivals and concerts. He told the undercover FBI agent that he wanted to, quote, shoot up concerts because they kill a lot of people. Now, keep in mind, this all happened last year, so it has nothing to do with what just happened in Las Vegas. But still, the timing of this revelation, pretty remarkable. Abby, Pete, and Dean.
Oh, so frightening. Thank you, Kristen.
We almost never hear about the dozens of plots that are foiled.
Foiled, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good thing they're foiling, obviously, too.
Absolutely.
You just forget it. You sort of forget and get lulled in a little bit of complacency, and then something like that comes
Right,
out.
and it gives you a sense of the mind inside someone who wants to kill as many people as possible. Let's go to these concerts. Let's go to places that are out in the open where all of us like to go and enjoy our time off. It's
we
really,
may be
really
complacent,
sad.
but our intelligence officers and others know we're still at war because the enemy is still trying and probing, doing anything.
Must stay vigilant. Must stay vigilant. All right, well, speaking of Vegas, all week long, we've seen incredible examples of bravery, like this SWAT team running into the gunfire while everyone runs away. So, how does a team like that train for these kinds of threats?
Well, Pete spent the day with Suffolk County PD Emergency Services, and he found out just how.
No, that's exactly right. We had Suffolk County's out on Long Island. Was able to pop out there and see some of the training that they do. These are the guys that the police call when they need backup. The Suffolk County PD SWAT team, also known as Emergency Services. They train year-round for active shooter situations like the one in Las Vegas. We got to look inside. Give us a sense into the tactics that you use, how you train for an active shooter scenario.
We need to get in as quickly as possible and effectively terminate the threat or stop the shooting. So the way we train the officers now in patrol is to, if you're the first person on the scene, you have to make that personal choice to make entry into that structure.
Hands up, on the floor, on the floor, on the floor.
We're all watching from afar what happened in Las Vegas.
Hey, go that way, go that way, go that way.
Just from what you've seen, your reaction to, those men that were clearing those floors and what they were facing.
From a law enforcement standpoint, to locate a sniper shooter type from 1,200 yards away is quite difficult.
Where is that coming from?
It's going to have to effectively rely on some 911 calls to try and localize where those shots are coming from. If you were standing in the crowd, it would be quite difficult. But the response to the hotel and the actual room where the shooting came from what I understand, was handled beautifully.
Breach. We have one suspect.
Every second is a casualty. So that's why it's imperative that the officers at the scene, they have to get there as quickly as possible and neutralize the threat.
Hey, they're shooting right at us, guys. Everybody stay down.
What kind of gear am I to be wearing today?
All right, we're going to put on you a ballistic vest. This is what we operate in, and obviously what we train in. We always train the way that we want to operate. So guys, no, train as you fight, exactly, because weight does make a difference, especially when you're working in it all day. So you want to get accustomed to wearing the gear.
And these plates, what do we got, 5.56 resistant?
They are rated for rifle rounds, yes, but I would not want to take a rifle round in the chest wearing anything, so plate or not.
It's been a while since I threw one of these.
Yeah, that's okay, so you just slip it up over your head.
Got to get it nice and snug. That's the key.
And then when we get rolling in a few minutes, you wear a ballistic helmet.
Oh, this feels like home right here. All right, guys, so we're about to roll up. Tell me what's going through your head right before you pull up on an objective or a house?
Main thing is watch each other's back.
Absolutely.
We all want to go home at the end of the day.
The psychology when you're at that door, when you're preparing to go into an active shooter environment, what's going through your head?
You have to be able to flip a switch. It's definitely an aggressive act. We control the structure by violence, speed, and surprise. I mean, that's really how the tactics are most effective.
It's one thing to deal with those kind of pressures on a deployment. It's a whole other thing when that is your job on a daily basis. And you don't realize how often that SWAT team gets called out. Every time they kick down that door, they don't know what's on the other side.
Exactly.
And in an active shooter scenario, the tactics have changed, so it's all speed. Whatever officers
Speed and violence of action.
Violence of action, get in there as quick as you can. Amazing guys at the Suffolk County PD.
Kind of feel nice to put the gear back on?
It did. When I said that thing, it feels like home. You get that vest on.
So you wore that same type of vest when you were overseas?
Almost the exact same vest.
How much does it weigh?
I couldn't tell you. I should know. It's probably 30, 40 pounds.
But heavy.
It's heavy. And it's better. I mean, the one I wore in Iraq, which was almost a decade earlier, was even heavier. The equipment's gotten better. But amazing folks. So
Bless
thank you
those
for having
guys.
us out
No
there.
question.
And
great work.
those are the ones charging into that hotel room in Vegas.
Yeah.
Unbelievably brave.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. All right, we're turning now to some extreme weather. The Gulf Coast now bracing for another hurricane.
States from Louisiana to Florida already issuing mandatory evacuations in preparation.
Meteorologist Rick Reichmuth is here tracking the storm. Rick, another one.
Yeah, I mean, we're still in hurricane season. It was a really active season, so we kind of expected to see a little bit more. By the way, season doesn't end until the end of November, so I'm not saying this will be the last one we have either. But in satellite representation, it's looking fairly organized. That's a bad thing. The one thing we have going for us here is that it's moving very, very fast. So it doesn't have a lot of time over water to continue that strengthening. That said, it does have some time. So we will likely see it strengthen a little bit. Exactly how strong still remains to be seen. It's a Category 1 hurricane. Officially, the forecast keeps it as a Category 1. I will tell you the rainfall rates, because it's moving so fast, are going to be kept down just a little bit where it comes on shore. But once we get into some mountainous terrain up across parts of the central Appalachians, expect to see more water wrung out of the system. And because of that, I think we'll see some spots up here, maybe 6 inches of rain, 7 inches, and that'll cause a little bit of localized flooding across some of the mountainous terrain. Obviously, some flooding where it comes on shore, as well as that storm surge. The official forecast of this continuing to pull off towards the north very, very quickly, making a landfall somewhere overnight tonight, and then we'll very quickly move out across the Tennessee Valley, Ohio Valley, and exit across parts of the Northeast. So everybody, by the time this is done, getting a little bit of this, but tonight, this storm coming on shore, it's a very quick.
Yeah, and it sounds really different from Hurricane Harvey, where that just lingered along the coast. This one seems to be moving a lot faster.
Way faster, which is very good news. That's going to keep the rainfall rates and the flooding much less extreme than what we saw with that storm.
All right, thank you, Rick.
Man, those guys really are getting pounded in the South, though.
Maybe this is a moment where we should have taken the president literally, and this is the calm before the literal storm.
The little storm. All right. Still ahead. It's one of the president's signature campaign promises.
We'll build a great wall along the southern border.
Build that wall. Build that wall. Well, this morning, we're getting our first look at what his big, beautiful wall could look like.
And President Trump is dealing with crisis after crisis the last several weeks, from Las Vegas to hurricanes to North Korea. We'll look at the lessons this president can learn from other great leaders like FDR. We're going to bring that to you next.
Let me put my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Some quick headlines for you on this Saturday morning. California's new sanctuary state law is forcing immigration officials to step up their game. ICE releasing a statement in part saying that the California law will undermine public safety. You think? Well, the bill limits state and local law enforcement from what they can share information about illegal immigrants with federal authorities. So we got a sanctuary state on our hands. And we're now getting a bird's eye view of President Trump's Mexican border wall. Construction workers now building 8 different prototypes near San Diego. Each prototype will be up to 30 feet high and 30 feet long, and half of them will be made of solid concrete. The prototype building process will last about 3 more weeks before a winner is chosen, and then likely construction begins. Abby, down to you.
All right, thank you, Pete. Well, from the unspeakable tragedy in Las Vegas to natural disasters and escalating tensions with North Korea, President Trump has been dealing with crisis after crisis over the past several weeks. So what lessons can we learn from history's great leaders who rose to the occasion when facing turbulent times? The author of the new book, Forged in Crisis, Nancy Kane, joins us right now. She's also a Harvard Business School historian. Great to have you here, Nancy.
Thanks for having me.
And you have this great book out and a reminder of just how important these times are, especially for presidents. I want to go through these and give people a sense of how they use that opportunity in the moment, starting with President Lincoln. Take us back.
President Lincoln, perfect storm, trying to lead the nation through the Civil War. One of the great lessons he learned was you have to articulate, embrace and articulate a big, worthy purpose, and then rally the American citizens to it, right? Save the Union, end slavery, restore America. Really important.
And FDR, when you think about FDR, you think about using communication in a way that we had never seen before. Let's play back a little bit of that.
Let me put my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
You see the people rallying around that, just listening to every word that came out of his mouth.
Absolutely, and he understood something that's so important for presidents in crisis, which is you don't just act and respond as an actor and a leader and commander in chief. You also have to guide people, their emotions, their fears, their confusion, and FDR did that brilliantly.
We were talking in the commercial break. George W. Bush, you think about maybe the biggest disaster any president has ever faced, 9/11. And you were telling me, and I forgot about this, he stayed behind at the White House. He stayed in Washington, D.C. in that moment for how long?
Well, he could have gone. He could have gone to a bunker, right, in an undisclosed location because Washington was under siege, and he elected right in the moment to stay as a symbol of his importance, the American people's resolve, and the fact that he was at the helm leading. That was incredibly important in the mass confusion and fear following all those attacks that Tuesday morning.
And then he spoke to the American people, right from the White House?
That night, he gave a speech less than 5 minutes, extraordinarily strong. Terrorists may shake the foundations of buildings. They will not shake the foundations of America. It was powerful.
Powerful. And then JFK, you think about 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis. He also had a similar reaction to G.W. Bush, saying, don't act irrationally.
Don't act irrationally. Don't do anything rash in the heat of the moment. Take in the issue from all sides. Keep a cool head as emotional temperatures and the stakes of the issue rise. So important.
It's so interesting to look back on history and how many crises this country has faced and how every single time we come back better and we come back stronger. And so much of that has to do with who was leading that country at the time.
It certainly does. Leaders have such an impact, Abby.
Well, it's a great book, Forged in Crisis. We're going to have that on our website as well. But I highly recommend. You've done so much research on this. Nancy Kane, great to have you here.
What a great pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, late night hosts have taken a hard turn to the left, attacking President Trump. Well, we know this every single night.
House Speaker Paul Ryan said he thinks President Trump's heart is in the right place on race relations. Oh, sorry, I misread that. His heart is in the white place.
From Kimmel to Colbert to Fallon, is the late night lineup's turn to politics hurting their late night ratings? Plus, I talked to my dad, a new ambassador to Russia, John Huntsman, in an exclusive sit-down interview. And there I am with both my parents, my mom as well. That's coming up.